The pandemic is expected to plunge most countries into recession in 2020, with per capita income contracting in the largest fraction of countries globally since 1870. Over the longer horizon, the deep recessions triggered by the pandemic are expected to leave lasting scars through lower investment and erosion of human capital through lost job and schooling, and fragmentation of global trade and supply linkages. For emerging market and developing countries, many of which face daunting vulnerabilities, it is critical to strengthen public health systems, to address the challenges posed by informality, and implement reforms that will support strong and sustainable growth once the health crisis abates. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a wake-up call for each and every citizen of this country, starting with our political leaders, some of whom, with their constant prophesying of doom, seem very impatient to see our people suffer, impatient to see the country down on its knees, or impatient to see us go back to lockdown and our economic activity goes into a standstill mode. We do not need this kind of political leaders, Mr. Speaker, sir. As much as we all wish that the world was spared this pandemic, one must admit that the COVID-19 has provided us with a chance to value real leadership in the face of adversity. And let me put this on record, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Prime Minister has once again brilliantly proven his mettle. We are not in the business as usual mode, Mr. Speaker, sir. We are in a new normal mode. And this calls for strategic reforms and transformation, innovativeness, solidarity and engagement, sustainability and inclusiveness. I had, Mr. Speaker, sir, during my intervention on the budget 2020-2021, laid emphasis on those very points. What remains constant, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the commitment of this government towards its people at all times, and in particular, during this harsh time we are all going through. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to comment on a few points that perfectly translate the strategic reforms and transformation into legislative enforcement. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Finance Bill highlights the need for urgent action to cushion the pandemic's health and economic consequences, to protect vulnerable population, and to set the stage for a lasting recovery. The amendments to the Banking Act, the Bank of Mauritius Act, and the Financial Services Act, Mr. Speaker, sir. The fintech, the use of cryptocurrencies, the use of blockchains will have a huge impact on the ways we do banking businesses traditionally. I am thus happy to note that the Banking Act is being modified to now recognize digital banking business, that is, banking business carried on exclusively through digital means or electronically. The Bank of Mauritius Act will now provide digital banking licenses to companies which will carry on exclusively digital banking business. The recognition of digital currency is now possible with the amendment in the Bank of Mauritius Act, Mr. Speaker, sir. The same applies to the amendments in the financial services sector. Those amendments now defines moneylenders other than banks or non-bank deposit-taking institutions and peer-to-peer lending, which is defined as a financial business activity enabling a person to lend funds through an online portal or electronic platform which matches lenders and borrowers. And this, Mr. Speaker, sir, is one step towards the new normal. Mr. Speaker, sir, the amendments to the Banking Act, the Bank of Mauritius Act, and the Financial Services Act pave the way to a transformational change in the banking landscape and are going to be very impactful in the future in ensuring continuity and competitiveness of our businesses. It translates the trends in our innovative ways of doing banking businesses. The introduction of a business obstacle alert mechanism Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius is ranked 13th out of 190 countries assessed according to the latest edition of Ease of Doing Business Report 2020 of the World Bank. This represents the best ranking ever for Mauritius since the publication of the report in 2007. Mauritius consolidated its lead position on the African continent as the best place for doing business. Last year, Mauritius was ranked 20th globally, progressing from the 25th position in 2017 and 49th in 2016. Our country also ranks second among middle-income economies, just behind Malaysia, which also scored 81.5 points, just like Mauritius. This leapfrogging in our ranking is due to the continuous effort and commitment of this government to improve the competitiveness of our country. Mr. Speaker, sir, the government of Mauritius will put in place a business obstacle alert mechanism. The functions of this mechanism are meant to enable an enterprise to log in any bottlenecks in relation to delays in determination of licenses, permits, and other clearances, and to inquire about any issue and make recommendations to public sector agencies. This measure, Mr. Speaker, sir, is yet another strong one that goes in line with our strategies to consolidate the position of Mauritius in the ease of doing business. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to now comment on the setting up of a Sports Economic Commission. We all know that Mauritius has talents that have proven themselves in the different streams of sports at very competitive levels. The Finance Bill 2020 makes provision for the setting up of a Sports Economic Commission with the aim to promote Mauritius as an international center for the hosting of international multidisciplinary sports events. Also aims at facilitating and promoting the Mauritius Sport Tech Incubator for startups. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we are to improve our competitiveness in sports, in addition to the world-class existing facilities that we have in Mauritius, we need to provide the framework for sports to evolve into a vibrant industry. And the more we look at sports from an industry perspective, the more we can open up opportunities for associated businesses to be linked up. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have experienced how solidarity played an important part in our national efforts to combat the pandemic. Mauritius has always shown this spirit in hard times, and we have, Mr. Speaker, sir, been able to rise up any challenge as a nation full of resilience amidst the roughest tempest. And one of the ways we need to demonstrate this solidarity and equity is to balance the act of imposing additional taxation and boosting the economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, while measures of the budget and the Financial Bill 2020 ease out the burden of personal tax by increasing the threshold, we have to call upon the understanding of many of our compatriots to the contribution to this solidarity levy at the rate of 25% in excess of 3 million of his income. Likewise, the same principle of solidarity and equity has been applied in many tax computations, Mr. Speaker, sir. However, Mr. Speaker, some much incentives have been given in terms of tax relief to businesses. The expenditure incurred on patents and franchises, where in an income year a company incurs an cost to comply with international quality standards and norms. All these incentives, Mr. Speaker, sir, provide une bouffée d'air frais to those businesses which run or wish to run on franchise. With regards to the wage assistance to technically unemployed, true it is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that many businesses have not been spared by the COVID-19 pandemic. not only in the hotel sector, but also in other sectors where vulnerability is at its peak. The government wage assistance scheme and other measures such as the transition and employment benefit will ensure that eligible employees in the private sector who are technically unemployed receive an adequate financial assistance during a specified period. This scheme concerns both Mauritians and foreign employees working in Mauritius. Such measures, Mr. Speaker, sir, demonstrate the commitment of this government to honor the social contract it has towards thousands of employees, in particular those who are in a very vulnerable position at the moment. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm happy to note that amendments will be brought to the Economic Development Board Act 2017 to enable the EDB to introduce a smart and innovative Mauritius development scheme and issue to that effect a smart and innovative Mauritius development certificate. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, goes along the lines of our strategic economic transformation to bring in more innovative businesses that will contribute to the growth of Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, this scheme will encourage the creation of organization, institution, centers engaged in research, development in fields of biotechnology, pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals, biomedical technologies, medical research. This is, Mr. Speaker, sir, yet another transformational change in the business landscape of our country. Mr. Speaker, sir, the amendment to the Mauritius Agricultural Marketing Act to operate and manage a national wholesale market is again another change in the landscape of the agricultural or agribusiness of Mauritius. The impact on this sector, on which we rely so much for our post-COVID recovery, is going to be tremendous. The coming into operation of the national wholesale market provide the necessary infrastructure for the handling of fruits and vegetables for onward sale. It puts in place a fair and transparent mechanism for setting up the price of fruits and vegetables with a view to ensuring that the planters obtain a reasonable price for their produce, providing a modern and accessible market information system on the evolution in this price of the produce. Through this operation, Mr. Speaker, sir, government is addressing a critical missing gap in our food production and supply chain, much to the benefit of thousands of our planters. Mr. Speaker, sir, we're not living in a context today and in the near future whereby we keep our old paradigms and hope that things will change for the better. In this context of unknowns, we need to be bold as a nation, as no one is able to forecast today with confidence the depth and the duration of this economic contraction. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, is where the leadership of this government differentiates itself from that of other parties. For the measures enunciated in its 2020-2021 budget and in the Finance Bill 2020, this government leadership showed boldness, it has demonstrated innovativeness, it transcends the belief that we can make it ensemble, together, in this unprecedented difficult period in our history, because the people have trust in the government and its leadership. I wish, Mr. Speaker, sir, to highly commend once again the excellent work done by our Prime Minister and my Honourable Minister of Finance and Economic Development. I thank you very much for your attention.